Hey guys, welcome to your Wednesday. All right, today's mission, you have been hired as a city planner, and this is my city planner hat. Might not know it, but it is my city planner hat. Your job as city planner of Geometryville is to create a city map or plan for this city called Geometryville. So in your packet, you have this piece of paper. It has a very large piece of white paper, and then these directions that are stapled to it so it doesn't get through. So you can pull that off nice and gently so you don't rip your paper. So now I have my directions, and I also have my city planner map. Okay, so let's read these directions together. I'm going to scroll off of my screen for just a second so you won't be able to see my city planning hat. And let's talk about the directions. All right, here we go. Let's zoom on in so you can see it a little better. All right, there it is. Geometryville. All right, today you have a very important task. You have been hired by the mayor of Geometryville to plan a city map. There's my task. Work hard to follow the requirements, so there's going to be some requirements for the city, and complete your map. Use a straight edge to make it precise. Now, if you don't have a ruler at home, I've got my ruler here to help me out, but if you don't have your ruler at home to help you with your tasks, I've got two here that are sort of stuck together. I wonder what sticky stuff's on there. All right, so if you don't have a ruler at home to complete your tasks, the side of a book will work, the side of a box of crayons, colored pencils, the edge of a folder, any of those will give you a straight edge. But you want your edges to be nice and crisp because the blueprint that you're creating, which is going to be a map of this Geometryville city, is going to be given to the mayor, and we want to present it as a neat presentation. Okay, so it's super important that before you start presenting and making your design, look at all of these requirements that we have to add because it's a lot of things that have to go onto this map. So I want to make sure I have enough room for it. And this part down at the bottom where it says don't forget, as you do this, you want to make sure you follow these because this is part of the requirements. We want to name all the landmarks. And a landmark is a building, a street, a sign. Those are landmarks that I can use. You want to be creative, be neat, and be colorful. Okay? This is a 2-day assignment. Your assignment for Wednesday and Thursday. So I want to put a little bit of effort to it. So my plan would probably be to plan working on it 30 minutes today, 30 minutes tomorrow. That way you have time to do your iReady and watch any of the other Canvas videos that are linked up for your days. Okay, so here's our requirements. I have to have three streets that are parallel to each other, and I have to name the streets. Okay, so in order to have these streets that are parallel to each other, I have to be able to draw straight lines. I'm just going to glance at the rest of these so I can make sure I can fit them in. I have to have 2 avenues that are perpendicular to those 3 parallel streets. It may help you to go back to the polygon name chart that I had on your lessons last week to remember what those words mean. But I'm going to have a total of 5 different passageways, 3 streets and 2 avenues that are perpendicular to those streets. So I don't want to make them too thick or too busy. So as I start designing my plan, I definitely, I'm going to scroll out again, want to use the entire piece of paper to put my plan. So as I use this large sheet of paper, I know I'm going to have 3 parallel streets. So my parallel streets, I think I'm going to do my streets this direction. And I'm using a black pen right now. I strongly recommend you use a pencil. But for right now, I'm going to use pen so it stands out to you a little bit better. Okay. Now I left some gaps there so that I can intersect my 2 avenues that are going to be perpendicular. There's my 2 avenues that are perpendicular to my streets. And we know perpendicular means it creates a right angle. So my avenue is going to be here. I'm actually going to continue it here a little bit. So it goes across. So there's my intersection of my street and my avenue. I'm going to come down here and do the same. And again, I don't recommend, oops, I went a little bit further. Right there is why I wouldn't recommend using marker the first time around, because you want to be able to erase any mistakes that you make, like I just did, and now I can't erase it. Then I'm going to come back here and finish my street. Okay, so now if this was in pencil, I would erase this line right here because I do not need that line in the intersection. And then it says to name the streets. So I'm going to name this one Jones Street. And the avenues, the two avenues have to be avenues or perpendicular to the streets. So this avenue I'm going to name Slider Avenue. And this street I'm going to name Math Avenue. And you can see that they are perpendicular to my street. Now I have to have two more streets somewhere. So I think what I'm going to do is put one that's closer to this street, and then I'm going to extend it across my whole plan. Okay? So I'm not going to have you watch me do that whole thing. You could do that. And then this one says I have to have two rectangular buildings. And remember, rectangular can also be a square because a square is a rectangle. And the first building, this is super important. This is what's going to take some thought and some scrap paper maybe to try a couple. Has to have a perimeter of 16. So if it has a perimeter of 16, the sides all have to add up to 16. So if I'm sketching a rectangular building, what can I add to make that 16? Well, I could do 2 by 2 by 10 by 10. Let's see, that's 10 by 2 and 2. It's 12, 22, 24. The perimeter of this one's 24, so it's not enough. Okay, so as you draw these inches, they should match how many inches are on your ruler. So make sure you leave enough room. I wouldn't make your streets and avenues too thick because you're going to lose space to add your buildings and your park and your parking lots and all the things that are on there. Okay, so your Geometryville poster should be on this large sheet of paper, and it should take up the entire town. You can put the label at the top that says Geometryville if you like, and then use some color and make it nice and neat. Make sure you're using a straight edge. Now, you also have some other options, and I wanted to show you another option. If you have a piece of technology or software that you would like to use, like Keynote, and you've used Keynote in class before, you may do a Keynote Geometry City, but the same requirements exist for the Keynote Geometryville that it did for the paper Geometryville. So if I'm starting a new one, here's my layout. I want to change my master layout. We want to go down here and use a blank one. And here's our screen. So now, if I wanted to add my streets, I can use a straight line, and I can extend it this way. We want it to be perpendicular. And then I want to add another street. Well, this would be my avenue, right? That's perpendicular. I can use my avenue here. And if I wanted to name them, this one could be Slider Avenue. And I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. And, oops, sorry. Let's bring it over here. There's Slider Avenue. And then I would do this. Now, when you do your buildings, you're just going to have to be real careful that you label your buildings and how big they are, if this is going to be one of the buildings and you're labeling them. But you can use Keynote, or you can use EduCreations, or any other technology tool you would like to design Geometryville, or you may draw it on your paper. That's up to you as to what you would like to do. Whatever you do, please make sure to share it with me. Either take a picture of it and email it to me, or share it with me on a Google Drive. Or if you do a Keynote, you can email that to me as well. All right, I'm going to delete mine because I was just using scrap paper on there. And let me come back up here to see you. Maybe my computer's thinking right now. So I'm going to let you go and get started on Geometryville. Do the best you can and make sure you keep in mind all of those requirements for Geometryville that the mayor has given you and check them off as you go. Use a nice straight line, use good measurements, and remember to review those polygons. Have a great time.